This morning I'm spending a little time over in our neighbor's yard digging up some nursery stock, specifically some persimmons in here. I only have a few minutes to do this before we got to get on to shipping, but I thought it'd be fun to share a little bit of what our workflow looks like at different times of the year. Right now it's digging up dormant bare root persimmons, thinking about this nursery space and how it can evolve in the future, and prepping those plants for shipping. I want to do a deeper dive in this area, but I'll link here the origin story of this was this area was air prune boxes 2 years ago and made an initial transformation of lawn into productive weed-free raised beds. This is the shadow of where the air prune boxes were. They were dumped and then we followed them immediately with high-value nursery plants. The east side or the right side had super cold hardy pomegranates, which seemed like they worked well, a whole bunch of elderberries, goji, blah blah blah. This side is all direct sown persimmon seed. I've got my little note here on our homemade simple tags, collected in November of 2022. So these were stored in our root cellar over winter of 2022-23 and planted in early May, persimmon from Black Diamond Farm. So this is our first year persimmons that we offer, and so in May of this last year they were sown. They grew really nicely. They're a little small in some ways, but there's some really beautiful ones in here. Very, very fine first year plants. And what I'll do is dig out, this is our style, is we sow somewhat densely our nursery crops in a bed, and then we'll harvest in a little dotted pattern and let them grow for a second year. So we take half of the bed and leave the other half to grow for one more year, and they'll evolve into bigger trees. So then we're able to grow and offer first year seedlings out of a bed, and then a year later second year seedlings. So I'm going to dig another little band out of here. This soil is extremely dense and clayey. If we could start a nursery from scratch, it would be on sandy soils to ease digging, but there's good nourishment in the soil, so the plants don't mind that. But there's a lot of extra mud and fertility on here that I want to leave out in the landscape rather than bring back to where we're processing nursery stock. So I'll get some of the soil off and then wash them in a little pond right nearby. But what I'm going to do is just bring them over a short hop, skip, and a jump. A good reminder, the landscape is particularly wet, to think about little hand-dug waterways here or there. So this is a pond that catches runoff from the hill, dries up in the summer, but this time of year when we're digging, it's a phenomenal place to bring plant material. We wash the roots and we put all the clay right here. So that's going to bring the berm up and allow the pond to hold more water, which makes the willow happier, which makes the cup plants, the whole guild through here of wet-loving, perennial, woody and herbaceous plants, the privacy filter for our neighbor, the nursery stock source. All of this is fed more when we hold more water and have more fertility. Right there is a permaculture idea of integrating systems, obtaining yields from the various things you do, etc. So little pond seasonally here, catching water from the hill, helping us rinse roots, and in exchange we'll leave our fertility on the edge. A lot of times the clay will come off really easily with just 1 or 2 dips in water. We don't have to get them pristine or fully removed, but there's the roots exposed just enough. We'll put this in sawdust when we get back to the main nursery. When I say that, I mean our house right through the gate, but we'll leave the clay that was in the landscape out here so we're not carrying it around. And yeah, you can see how easy that is to get the bulk of it off. Not down in the bottom of the pond where it'll silt in, but a little lubrication from the pond and then a deposit on the edge. We're offering violets this spring, so as they show up, we'll grab them too. Some more fresh water's flowing in. A little bit of silt plume there, but use the gloves to grab that muck and pack it on the bank. So again, the excess clay and nutrient that was problematic on the roots of the persimmon is valuable in a lull here to help more water be held in this water holding landscape form. The persimmons are very, very roughly rinsed, but just a lot less weight and unnecessary material to bring back. We'll get these into sawdust or directly into water and then start organizing them for shipping. These are explicitly for shipping orders today and tomorrow. We try to dig fresh to that end. And I owe this bed an IOU of care. If I was really provisioning for time and energy best, I'd have come out with cuttings that needed to go in or seeds that were ready to go in, but that just isn't the case right now. And so this bare soil, if it gets hotter and drier, will suffer, but sooner than later we'll come back with compost and think about what happens in between. We'll leave these bands of first year persimmons to grow on to be taller, high value, more field ready second year persimmons, and the interspace can be used for annual cropping or smaller perennial plants. So I might be able to sow Good King Henry in between or things like that. So that's to be determined. We'll come back to that, but this is the amount of time I had this morning to share this little snippet into the behind the scenes of how a little permaculture nursery can function.